Western medicine calls autism a disorder, but what if we chose to honor the wisdom of neurodivergence? In this episode, we meet Latrel Dortch, founder of the Holistic Brain Center. We're exploring what it means to stop fixing and start listening. Long before Western clinical treatment, there was us. Welcome to the Healing Underground, a sacred space where we remember what we've always known, reclaim what we've always had, and rise in all the ways that heal. I'm Ashley Edwards, a mental health innovator, founder of Mind Right Health, and initiated Ìyá in the West African spiritual practice of Ifa. If you have ever felt that modern wellness was not made for all of who you are, you're in the right place. But remember, this podcast is not a lecture, it's a meditation. Let's begin. So, Latrel, welcome to the Healing Underground.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it is such a pleasure. And I have to let our listeners know Latrel is a very special guest. She's also a sister friend. And I was so excited to bring you on here, Latrel, because I've always admired your work. Latrel and I met each other when we were working in the school system in Newark, New Jersey. And what's always inspired me about Latrel is her seamless way of integrating both spirit and science into her work supporting youth. So I want to just thank you for what you do, Latrel, and always just being an inspiration for me. And I'd love to start with just asking you as the expert, how do you define neurodivergence?
Neurodivergence, I would say simply is individuality. Not so much differences, but individuality is uniqueness.
I love that, Latrel. And how, if you could tell us more about your work with the Holistic Brain Center and how you carry that honoring of the uniqueness of neurodivergence into your center.
So the center began pretty much with the way I've done work before my children were born. And when my child was, I have twins, 7-year-old twins. And when my son started to show regression in language and things like that, we did go and seek help, and we did go ahead and get a diagnosis. And we never really used the word. And it's not because of shame, but because psychologically and spiritually, sometimes when we put a label on it, it's really hard to get past it. Because like with the collective, there is an idea of what that word means. So if I need to, I'll use it, but I'll say he's on the spectrum, or I'll say that he has a diagnosis. So with the center, we wanted to create a place where not only we could help and support my son and my daughter, because she's a little quirky too, it would take the whole neighborhood, the whole community with us. Because I feel that, he's a gift. Both of them are gifts. And it helped bring a certain part of me out. And it's supposed to be used. So I want to be able to use it for all the children that I can.
Yes. And it's so beautiful because when we talk about just the spiritual aspect of this, in many traditional African spiritual practices, we actually celebrate those who exhibit heightened sensitivities. These are gifts. Can you talk more about, do you see that on your side? Does that resonate with you?
Oh, yes. So when I was delivering, I had 2 women that definitely helped me. I had a doula and a herbalist, and they constantly explained to me that with the African tradition, that when you have twins, there's gonna be one that's gonna make the way for the other. And Dakari is the first one, but Dakari actually makes the way. He paves the way for Amelie, my daughter. And it's very interesting because Dakari almost paves the way for all of us. I was happily in a school district, well, kind of happily, because I kind of...
We understood.
Yeah. I was in the school district, I was working, and I felt like I was doing the work, But when the Kari came along, he disrupted a lot of things, but it brought so many blessings. Like when he stayed up in the middle of the night, like at 3:00 in the morning, I started waking up at 3:00 in the morning. I set my clock to meditate at 3:00 in the morning. And during that time, I had so many insights. So I meditated at that time. If he got up with me, he had to learn how to meditate also. And this was at 3 years old. So now you'll see my daughter, who pretty much has dreams, and she says, oh, he's going to do this, or he's going to do that. She told me the other day that she says, Mommy, you're being too soft on him. She says that to be real, she said, you're spoiling him. He's playing you. And I was like, what? And so I said, like I always get him dressed. And she took him upstairs. She says, I've had about enough of you. She was like, get dressed. And he got up and he got dressed. So I don't know how they're going to pave the way for each other, but the Kari brings out so much in all of us. So, and then we have to in turn bring it out of him.
Yes. And that is so incredible and so beautiful and such a gift just to see the Kari, like the Kari being a gift for you and your family and his sibling, which I think is not often talked about when we talked about youth that, as you said, are labeled as on the spectrum. So I'm curious, when you're working with parents or maybe other educators at the Holistic Brain Center and your work with school systems, I guess what advice are you giving them on how to walk this path in a way that really honors the gifts that these kids are bringing?
Look at it as a gift and not as, why did this happen to me? Because I did go there. At the beginning, I did. Like the first day I got the diagnosis, I was on the floor in a fetal position saying, I don't want to have to take care of him all my life. I'm independent. I don't want to be. And I cried. And then I got up and I had to be a mom. Like, enough of this. And I have to sometimes walking through with mothers that feel like, okay, they're go-getters, they're professionals, and then they get this child that says, okay, everything is not going to go the way you want. Everything is not going to be laid out in this perfect plan that you've created. There is a higher plan, and this child is going to help you bring it through. So I try to help them with it with compassion. And then sometimes if I have to get tough, I'm letting them know, like, listen, this is your child,
I just thank you so much, Latrel, just for your honesty with that journey about your pregnancy and motherhood when you received that news, because I know a lot of parents can relate to that story, and you're showing what can come from that. You don't have to stay in that place. And so I just really appreciate you sharing. And I'm curious for those listening, if you could share any stories about something that others probably wouldn't believe when you start integrating the spiritual respect for kids in the work. Do you have any stories that you can share of outcomes that you've seen?
With my son or with the kids?
Anyone.
Okay, I'll start off one with my son. It's kind of funny. One of the times wasn't. He was throwing something and I was really upset with him. This is before I had to really just learn that he's teaching me. Now, before he stopped talking, all through 2 years old, he used to always say, tell me. He was like, I'm your helper. I'm your helper. And I used to be like, yeah, you're my helper. Help me pick up this. Mommy, I'm your helper. And then when the change started happening, he didn't say too much of anything, but we saw behaviors. And one day I was so frustrated with cleaning up the room again. I said something pretty bad in my head. Like, why did you have to, why'd you have to come like this? Or something like that. And I didn't say it out loud. I saw him look at me and I was like, oh my gosh, did he hear me? But then I noticed that there are times, and that Ashley, sometimes I gotta be a bit sarcastic. In my head, I would make fun of, people, like some things that somebody said or something. And I would see him laugh. And I was like, wait a second. He couldn't have heard me. And he does this so if I have a nightmare, I sleep next to him. He jumps up and cries. So we are very spiritually connected. So I have learned to watch my thoughts because I'm not sure how much you can hear. I have learned that they say that sometimes kids are connected to you for a certain amount of years. I could feel that connection. When I'm running around and I get too frazzled, he starts yelling or screaming and he'll say, no, no. And it's like, whoa, like it's me. Don't yell at him. Don't put him in timeout. It's me. Calm down. And so there's time. They see me meditate all the time. So now they know that it's, this is time. It's time for you to calm down.
Wow. So spiritually attuned. Like that is beyond empathy. That is a gift to be that level of spiritually attuned to someone, which it sounds like the connection you have. You mentioned you feel like he may be able to read your mind or your thoughts. Have you watched or heard of the telepathy tapes?
Well, I did hear about it, but to be honest, there's a part of me that's a little afraid because, I don't want him to know everything.
Yes. So for those who are unfamiliar, there's a understanding that's coming to light that youth who are identified or labeled as being on the spectrum may be spiritually gifted with telepathy. And the story that you just shared aligned directly with that. So I had to call that out.
Yeah. And there's times. So before him, I did ABA. I wasn't a fan of it, but I did it. And I always would try to bring something differently into it because I didn't want them to, the kids I would work with to be robotic. ABA is the only research-based or evidence-based therapy that like insurance will pay for. So as soon as a child is labeled as being on a spectrum, they're usually given this by the insurance. So, I did it, but this is before I had children. It was about 10 years before I had children. But when I would work with some of the kids, I was okay with knowing that I could hear them. It wasn't a big deal, but I would sense, because it wouldn't be quite words, but I can sense what they were saying. And then I would talk right back to them because sometimes it's like you're working. And I can look right at them and they say, could we please stop? Or could you stop talking?
You're saying you could hear them in your mind. Is that what you're saying?
Can sense or hear them. So there's a lot of times, even when I'm doing testing, I don't always know how I get to where I get to, but it comes and I honor it. And I've gotten more bolder because of the Kari to just say it. And usually I'm correct. Or like humbly I'm saying this. But with the kids, I use it a lot, especially kids that are not talking. If they tell me, like something is hurting, or sometimes I might even feel it, which it's not always fun because they're kids who are, got stomach issues, gastrointestinal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'll ask about it and they will have it, so it is a quietness that both of us have to take when I'm working with children like this. But I wouldn't even say it's just children like this, with children in general. I try to stay in tune with them, but I try to live a quiet life so I can stay in tune with them.
And I have to ask, why do you think just hearing about the beauty and the healing and really understanding the spiritual gifts of neurodivergent people in general, youth and adults, why do you think this is not so widely talked about and accepted when it comes to the actual field and and child psychiatry and youth development work? Why aren't people talking about this? This is amazing. Yeah.
I think honestly, it's about conformity. If it's not the majority and they can't control it, they need to box it. They need to label it. They need to ostracize it, because they definitely do not go along the norms. It's almost as if you think that it's going to go that way, they'll kind of disrupt it and let you know, like, you may not be in control completely, And that brings the beauty of life. Like, if we were all robots, which they would like to say that they're robots, when they're just like kids who are on the spectrum, they always keep it going. Always. It's like when you think that it's exactly what they're going to do, they'll switch up on you, So, but I feel like a lot of the society, we move just like public school. we're taught to stand in a line. We're taught to raise our hands. We're taught to be like everyone else. And then you get this one kid that just won't do it. And so we make like really nice classes for them and pay specialists a little bit more to deal with them.
Yes. So then I'm curious then, is part of your work at the Holistic Brain Center and just in general, is it also part of the work helping parents to unlearn some of these things and kind of open their eyes a bit?
Yes. I think it is a lot about unlearning because I'm unlearning. It took me a couple of degrees before I get to know, like, I don't know. I'm learning everything at 3:00 in the morning. You know, I'm actually looking, like, there was a day that I said, God, if I don't hear something, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I need to have some type of breakthrough with this child. And then all of a sudden I understood how diet comes into everything. And then there's a whole world of, and I said, how did I not know this? And I saw a YouTube clip and I said, I wonder how diet would work with it. And then I started playing with it and things started happening.
You can't control when those spiritual downloads come.
No, you cannot. You cannot. And now even Andreas, my husband, is getting and it's funnier with him because he's like, listen, I got a video for you today. I just was talking about it. And he loves it. And we're all working like this now.
Oh my gosh. So with all of this, Latrel, tell me, like, what is next? What is coming up with the Holistic Brain Center?
So we are registering to be a non-public school.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's huge.
Yes. We're registering to be a non-public school. It should be finished within a couple weeks. We have to go through all of the inspections and everything. But just like, this is neurodivergent in itself. I don't feel that kids should have to be there for 6, 7, or 8 hours. We want to make sure it's a 4-hour day in the morning for one group, in the afternoon from 12 to 4 for the other group, because some kids, like everyone in this house, wakes up with a lot of energy. They may need to go to work from 8, go to school from 8 to 12. But 12 to 4 is when they need to have their natural downtime. I meet a lot of kids who don't even get initiated. They don't even start getting working until about 12 o'clock. So from 12 to 4 would be their time. And of course, I would throw in all the curriculum, but I feel that kids learn naturally. They learn what they need to learn naturally. I'm adding in a lot of supports for the brain. Whether it's neurofeedback, whether it's different neuroscientific backed reading and math programs, having specialists in there that really understand that we may not get off a theme for a while, or either we might go through the whole thing in one day, but at least it's individualized. So it'll be almost like a marriage of Montessori and ABA. But I want the parents to understand it's not to fix your child. It's really to support the potential that is already there. So we try to make sure that they even have coaching so that this way they can be coached with nutrition. They could be coached with, it brings a different dynamic into the household, whether it's a marriage household, whether it's just siblings, it brings a different dynamic, and they kind of all just have to learn how to relax and just flow into their newness.
Yes. Wow. So if I'm a parent listening to this podcast right now, because everything you're saying is very, very much resonating, how can people find out more, Latrel?
We have a website. It's a little bit under construction, but you will still be able to find me. The emails are still there. holisticbraincenter.com. You can definitely find me there. Somehow, people do find me through Tomatis. It's a listening therapy. You can go through the website and you can find me there also. I am a level 1. I'll be working on level 2 literally this week.
That is amazing.
A lot of the therapies that we do, which is really interesting, and this is something I really want to highlight. I've seen kids who weren't able to sit up, like literally their their muscular system, their vestibular system, didn't allow them to sit up, and giving them 2 weeks of sound therapy, and they were able to sit up. Last summer, I gave them 2 more weeks of sound therapy, and the little girl said, "Mama," and I cried, but I turned away because I needed her mom to hear it, because the best thing in the world is when your child has regressed so much and they don't say mommy anymore. When they first say mama again, oh my gosh, it's priceless. So with sound, we use light therapy, like Cure therapy, light therapy. It's energy. We're recalibrating any kind of, not even deficiencies, but any kind of abnormalities with energy. Literally energy. When he was little, he wouldn't sleep. I would just put my hand and start doing Reiki, and you would feel his energy popping. And I was like, oh my gosh, but just smoothing it out. So it's all energy. That's what we are essentially anyway, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is energy work. This is healing work. It's all the things. And I think the sooner everyone accepts that, the sooner we can move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it becomes exciting.
Right.
Because
this
then
is
it's like,
fun.
okay, what if I, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it becomes exciting.
Yeah, because it gives a sense of empowerment back. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes, because that's originally who we are. It really is. And even when you get a child that, those puzzles, like you got to figure them out. It's like you're really figuring out yourself. They know what, I feel that they know what they're doing. Sometimes if they're in pain, it kind of helps us to know how to adjust ourselves so we can help relieve them. But it makes us understand that we're all one. It makes us to understand that we're all energy. And it's just not just, like woo-woo words. It's the realness. It's really like, it's real. My daughter uses oracle cards to figure out like, okay, let me see what, what's the wisdom to deal with the Kari.
So Latrel, you have shared so much wisdom this entire interview about your experience personally with your own children to just the work you're doing at the Holistic Brain Center. I could talk to you forever just because 1, you're amazing, and 2, we're friends in real life, and I just love everything about talking to you. But we do have to close out this podcast. So in closing, for all the parents, educators, or just really anyone listening to this episode, what's one thing you want listeners to take away about neurodivergence?
It's a gift. It truly is a gift. And it actually begins your healing journey. When you get that moment where you've noticed that something might be different or unique, embrace it. Literally, that's the moment when you have your doorway to that. And it's a little bit more intense than other parents because there's a bigger purpose for either you or your child. Embrace the gift.
Wow. How beautiful. Neurodivergence as a doorway to God and the divine. Thank you so much, Latrel, for joining us today. And this is a reminder for everyone listening. Again, neurodivergence is a gift. And as Latrel pointed earlier, woo-woo is real. Thank you for going underground with us today. But the journey doesn't stop here. If you'd like some extra support, feel free to explore my free guided meditations. Or if you're ready to have someone walk beside you on this journey, visit MindRight to start your healing. May your healing be sovereign, may it be sacred, and may it be yours.